There's a moment in everyone's life when the world turns its back on you. When you stand alone, abandoned by those you trusted, left in the silence of your own thoughts. It feels like a curse, like the universe is punishing you for daring to hope, daring to dream. But in that isolation, in that crushing loneliness, something else happens, something that the world never saw coming. Your true power begins to rise, not in the warmth of comfort, but in the cold, unforgiving embrace of solitude. And that's when you learn no one was ever going to save you. The only one who could save you was you all along. It always starts the same way. One by one, the people you thought you could rely on start to disappear. The ones who once said they had your back are nowhere to be found when you need them the most. You try to rationalize it, tell yourself it's not their fault. Maybe you've just been too much for them to handle, or maybe they're busy with their own lives. But deep down, you know the truth. They left you. And you're standing here, shattered, questioning everything. This is the moment when most people break. When the world crumbles beneath their feet and they fall to their knees helpless. It feels like a betrayal that runs deeper than anything you've ever felt before. But let me tell you something. That silence is your greatest ally. It's in that quiet, in the absence of distractions, that you finally have the space to hear your own thoughts. Not the voices of others telling you what to do or who to be, but your own voice, raw, unfiltered, and real. The world convinces you that you need others to find your way, that your worth is tied to their approval. But the truth is, when you strip away all the noise, all the opinions, all the expectations, what's left is the core of who you really are. And that core, that's where your true power lives. Betrayal is heavy. It drags you down, chains you to the past, and keeps you anchored in pain. The people you thought would be with you forever turned out to be temporary. Their promises, empty. Their loyalty, conditional. And every time you replay the moments in your head, the lies, the excuses, the abandonment, it eats away at you. But here's the thing about betrayal. It teaches you more about strength than loyalty ever could. Because when no one stands with you, you are forced to stand on your own. And in doing so, you learn that you were never truly weak. It was their presence that made you doubt your strength in the first place. The pain of betrayal is like fire. It burns you, scars you, but it also forges something new within you, something unbreakable. When the people around you betray you, they aren't just leaving you, they're freeing you. They're giving you the chance to rise without them, to become something more than you ever could have been with their false support. Loneliness is painted as this dark, suffocating force. People are terrified of being alone, of facing their own thoughts without distraction. But here's what no one tells you. Loneliness is where your true self lives. It's in those moments of isolation, when you feel like you have nothing left, that you discover who you really are. When no one stands with you, you are forced to confront your deepest fears. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being forgotten. And in confronting those fears, you begin to dismantle them, piece by piece. You realize that the thing you've been running from your whole life, your own company, isn't something to fear at all. In fact, it's the most powerful thing you have. Because here's the truth. When you're alone, you're untouchable. No one can betray you. No one can hurt you. No one can tell you who to be or what to do. In loneliness, you find freedom. The kind of freedom that terrifies most people, because it means they can no longer blame the world for their failures. When you stand alone, there's no one to fall back on, but there's also no one holding you back. In the beginning, standing alone feels like a curse. It feels like you've been abandoned by the world, left to fend for yourself. But as time passes, something incredible happens. You start to realize that you don't need anyone else to validate your worth. You don't need anyone's permission to succeed. You don't need anyone's approval to chase your dreams. This is where your true power rises, the power of self-reliance. The power to stand tall, not because someone else is holding you up, but because you've learned to hold yourself up. You've learned that the strength you were looking for in others was inside you all along. And now that you've tapped into that strength, There's nothing that can stop you. When you rely on others, you give them power over you. But when you stand alone, when you rely on yourself, you take that power back. You become unstoppable because your strength is no longer dependent on anyone else. And that's when you realize you were never truly alone. You always had yourself, and that's more than enough. Pain is inevitable. It's a part of life, a part of growth. But when you're alone, when no one stands with you, that pain feels sharper, more intense. It feels like the world is pressing down on you, daring you to break. And for a moment, you might feel like giving in, like letting the weight of it all crush you. But here's the thing about pain. It's also fuel. The world may have abandoned you, but your pain, that's yours. It belongs to you, and you can use it to burn brighter than ever before. Every time you've been hurt, every time you've been betrayed, every time you've been left alone, it's all fuel for the fire inside you. And that fire, that's your power. When no one stands with you, you're given the opportunity to turn your pain into power, to rise above it, to let it sharpen you instead of break you. The world may think it's pushing you down, but in reality, it's giving you the tools to rise. And when you do, when you rise from the ashes of your pain, you become unstoppable. Most people will never understand the kind of strength it takes to stand alone. They'll never know what it's like to rely on nothing but yourself, to find power in your solitude. They'll never see the quiet battles you fight every day, the ones that don't leave visible scars but tear you apart inside. But that unseen strength, that's what makes you different. That's what sets you apart. Because when no one stands with you, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. You're building a foundation of strength that no one else can see, but you can feel it growing with every step you take. And when the world finally sees you rise, when they see the power you've built in the darkness, they'll wonder how you did it. They'll wonder how you became so strong. And the truth is, they'll never fully understand. Because true strength isn't built in the light, surrounded by people who lift you up. It's built in the dark, when you're alone, when no one believes in you but yourself. When no one stands with you, it's easy to feel like you're losing, like the world has already won, and you're destined to fail. But what the world doesn't realize is that this is your moment of transformation. This is the moment where everything changes, where you stop relying on the world and start relying on yourself. And when that happens, when you fully embrace your solitude, your strength, your power, you become unstoppable. The world may have left you, but you've risen higher than they ever imagined. You've become something greater, something stronger than anyone thought possible. In the end, standing alone isn't a curse. It's a gift, because it's in those moments of loneliness, of abandonment, that your true power rises. And once you've found that power, once you've embraced it, there's nothing that can stop you. When people leave you, they often think they're abandoning someone weak, someone dependent on them for survival, for validation. They misjudge you, and that misjudgment is their biggest mistake. They believe you'll crumble without them, that you'll fall apart when their support is taken away. But what they don't realize is that, by stepping away, they're freeing you. They're giving you the space to rise on your own terms. The absence of their presence, their judgments, and their opinions becomes the very thing that allows you to grow stronger. What they intended as a setback is, in reality, your liberation. This is the turning point. The moment you realize their departure was a gift, not a loss. The world's misjudgment becomes your opportunity to surprise them, to show them that the strength you found within yourself is far greater than any support they could have offered. They thought leaving you behind would destroy you, but it only made you more resilient. They thought you were dependent on them. But the truth is, you never needed them to begin with. One of the most powerful motivators is the desire to prove everyone wrong. The people who didn't believe in you, the ones who walked away, who doubted your potential, they fuel your rise. But this isn't about revenge. It's about growth. It's about proving, not just to them, but to yourself, that you are more than they ever imagined. that their absence has allowed you to discover a strength within yourself that you never knew existed. Each day, as you rise higher and push harder, you're not doing it for them, you're doing it for you. But in the process, you're showing them that their decision to walk away didn't break you. It built you. They may never admit it, but deep down, they'll know they were wrong about you. And that realization will haunt them. They'll see the fire in your eyes, the strength in your steps, and they'll wonder how you managed to rise when they thought you would fall. That's the power of standing alone. It's not just about survival. It's about thriving in spite of everything that was meant to tear you down. There's a moment when you finally awaken to your own strength. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen with fanfare. It's a quiet realization, a shift in perspective. You wake up one day, and the weight that's been pressing down on you for so long feels lighter. The doubt, the fear, the loneliness, it's still there, but it no longer controls you. Instead, it fuels you. You look in the mirror, and you don't see someone broken by abandonment. You see someone who has survived it. You see someone who has found power in the very thing that was supposed to destroy them. That awakening isn't flashy, it's not loud, but it's life-changing. It's the moment you realize that everything you need is already within you. You've been through the fire, and you've come out stronger. The world may have tried to break you, but instead, it has awakened a power within you that can't be extinguished. That's the moment when you stop surviving and start thriving. For too long, the world has told you that darkness is something to be feared, that being alone, being abandoned, being rejected is a sign of failure. But here's the truth that no one tells you. The darkness is where your greatest power lives. It's in those moments of struggle, of solitude, of silence, that you truly find out who you are. Embracing the darkness doesn't mean giving into it. It means accepting that it's a part of you. It means understanding that your pain, your anger, your loneliness are not weaknesses, they are your fuel. They are the things that will drive you forward when the world tells you to stop. When no one stands with you, it's easy to feel like the darkness is consuming you. But what if the darkness isn't here to destroy you? What if it's here to reveal the parts of yourself that you've been too afraid to see? The parts that are powerful, that are unbreakable, that are capable of more than you ever imagined. Embracing the darkness means facing the parts of yourself that scare you, the parts that the world has told you to hide. But once you face them, once you accept them, you realize that the darkness isn't something to fear, it's something to use. The world is full of noise. Everyone has an opinion, a judgment, a voice that tells you who to be, what to do, how to live. But when no one stands with you, the noise fades. When you're left standing alone, the silence can be deafening. But it's in that silence that you hear your own voice the clearest. In a world full of noise, you find clarity in solitude. The world may turn its back on you, people may abandon you, but their absence only amplifies your own power. It strips away the distractions, the judgments, and the false perceptions, leaving you with nothing but the raw truth of who you are. And who are you? You're someone who has survived, someone who has stood through the storms, the betrayals, the loneliness, and the abandonment. You're someone who found strength in your darkest moments, someone who realized that the opinions of others don't define your worth. You're someone who stands even when no one else will. You didn't fall, you didn't crumble, you didn't break. You stood tall, and in doing so, you discovered the truth that they didn't want you to find. You don't need them to stand. The power you were looking for in others, it was within you all along. The strength you thought you'd lost when they left, it was waiting for you to claim it. And now, as you stand alone, you are more powerful than ever before. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning. The world thought they could break you by leaving you alone, but they were wrong. They underestimated the power of solitude. They underestimated the force of someone who is no longer looking for validation, for approval, for acceptance. So now, as you stand there, in the quiet, in the stillness of being truly alone, you rise. And this time, you don't need anyone to catch you, because you've learned to fly on your own. This is your time. This is your rise. And now, the world will see what happens when no one stands with you, because that's when your true power comes to life. By the way, if you want to level up in life, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.